Hi, everybody, and welcome back after a Thanksgiving break to this week's Writers Chat. We're so glad to see all the friendly faces that we see in the chat, and we really appreciate those of you that take the time to watch the replay, because we know a lot of you do with your busy schedule, watch the replay. So welcome to Writers Chat. This is the place where writers like to gather, and we talk about all things writing for writers, by writers, and help keep us going. We always say this is a shot in the arm to keep us going each week. So we're looking for today's show. So good morning, everybody. My name's Jean Wise. I'm one of the co-hosts, and we've got everybody here today. We got both Bethany and Johnny joining us, and our special guest, Susan Neal. So we're looking excited about that. And before I turn it over to Bethany to introduce our topic and our guest today, I do want to remind that Susan did put together a wonderful handout for today about how to set up a podcast tour that's on the Writers Chat members page to link to. And I think we might try to put the link also in the chat when Melissa gets the time and we can link to it. You might want to make a copy of it. I know it's a really good resource. I already copied it down. So I'm excited to go through that. So Susan, I'm looking forward to hearing you today. And Bethany, why don't you tell us a little bit about Susan and what we're doing today?
I am so excited to welcome Susan to Writers Chat, and then to be able to introduce her and tell you a little bit about her, because she is highly impressive. She's amazing at what she does, not only in career, but then also puts it into her writing, and then is amazing at marketing as well. So she is my hero in that sense. So I'm going to read you her bio because it's wonderful, every piece of it. So Susan Neal, welcome. As a certified AWSA Writer Coach, we have many awesome members in here. Susan Neal desires to help others publish and sell their God-given message. She is the author of 7 healthy living books. Her self-published, #1 Amazon bestseller, 7 Steps to Get Off Sugar and Carbohydrates, won the SELA Award and sold over 15,000 copies in just 3 years. It's amazing. Wow. And then recently, I know, recently Susan won the 2020 Christian Author Network Crown Award for Outstanding Broadcast Media. Congratulations for her book marketing campaign. She's a trusted advisor for authors and helps many people sell their books. She has a course, How to Sell 1,000 Books in 3 Months. She has it on Serious Writer Academy, but she is also the new director of the Christian Indie Publishing Association, which is very exciting, especially with what's going on in the market today with book publishers and everything. So it is an honor, Susan, to welcome you here. I'm so excited to take notes. I know so many of us are ready to learn from you. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled to be here to meet you all and to show you how to do a podcast tour. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen here. Let's see. I'm going to push share. And do you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see if we can make this big and start the slideshow. Here we go. How to set up a podcast tour. Okay. Well, I want to tell you what I'm going to teach you today helped me to get this goal, #1 Christian Author Network Crown Award for Outstanding Broadcast Media. Because the first 8 months of this year, I was in my marketing mode. You know, we go from a writing mode to a marketing mode. So I was in the marketing mode. And I was on 29 different podcast, radio shows, Facebook Live, whatever visual media, YouTube, whatever visual media that I was a guest on for 29 different shows in the first 8 months of this year. And that is what helped me to achieve this award. So if you want to do a podcast tour, first you have to find your podcasts. And if you're just coming on to this in a replay, I really highly recommend you print out this handout, because then you can just jot down a few different notes on here. But you You can find a podcast through networking. Like first I started out with AWSA, the Advanced Writer and Speaker Association. And they even have now a list of all the different members who have podcasts. So that's great. So you could do your networking through the Writer's Chat. Who in here has a podcast? Could you be a guest on it? So what professional association members do you know that have a podcast that you could reach out to them and ask? And networking, gosh, I've just been at conferences before and found someone who, hosts a podcast and pitched to that person right then and there, would you, consider having me on your podcast? And here's a couple of ideas that I would have. Social media is another way. So every time I am friending somebody on social media, I read their bio. Are they a podcaster? Do they have a radio show? If they do, I check it out. And I found this one doctor, let's see, it was an Enduring Health podcast, and he was from England. And I was a guest on his podcast because I reached out to him via direct messaging on Twitter. Yes. So social media is a way that you could find podcasters. Now, a much easier way is through a podcast subscription. You can go to radioguestlist.com, and for $9 a month, you can subscribe to that. And they send you, I think it's 20 podcasters per month. With podcastguest.com, they do the same, but in my opinion, they're a little bit higher caliber of podcasters. On podcastguest.com, they charge the same amount, $9 a month. I subscribe to both of them. And so with those, you get a link to their podcast. You see with radioguestlist.com, you see how big their sizes of their audience. You have their email address and all of that right in there. You could also purchase a podcast directory. Power of Profit's 500 show list is $47. But you know what I found with lists like that is that the podcasters were not always actively seeking guests. Whereas with the 2 podcast subscription I just mentioned, they are actively seeking guests. And you want to respond to those quickly because they get a lot of responses. You could search a podcast directory, such as listennotes.com. You could search for podcasts on your own, and this takes time. Like for me, I would just type in, healthy living podcasts. And then here would be a blog with the top healthy living podcasts. And, it would have links to their website. I could, check them out. Or, another one might have the top 100. So you can search for podcasts on your own. If you find a podcast you like on your cell phone, like you found, this is the perfect one. I wish I could find some more like this. What you do is you scroll down to the bottom of the page to find the You Might Also Like list of similar podcasts. And here I can show you this. So on your cell phone, you found a podcast you like, you want to find similar ones. So you just scroll down, and right here, you can see where it says write a review. Well, underneath that, it says you might also like. And if you swipe left, there's a whole list of other podcasts. And I've created like long lists and gone through and figured out, okay, their address and all this information about them to query other podcasts that might be similar to one that was perfect for me. Now on the computer, what you do is you look for listeners subscribe to by going down the page. So here on Apple Podcast Preview, you go down to the bottom here and it says listeners also subscribed to. And again, you kind of swipe left that way, and you have a whole list down there of different podcasts that are similar to the ones that you like that you could potentially query. Here's another way to do it on your computer. Here's Jamie Hull. She's an AWSA sister with face-to-face mentoring. She's a great one if you're in AWSA to query to see if you could be, pitched to her with being on her podcast. And if you go down, you see here it says listeners also subscribed to. So those are similar podcasts. Now I tell you that this takes time to do this, but just think of the whole audience that is being opened up to your story and to your book and to your free gifts and your links and all about you. And so I chose to go ahead and be a guest on different podcasts and use their audience versus creating my own podcast. I really had to pray about that. I struggled with that. And I decided I was going to use other people's audiences because I felt like I would have just one small audience. And if I'm on 30 different podcasters and they each have several thousand followers, well, that just opens it up to a lot more people. Now, before querying a podcast, I determined the number of iTunes reviews to get a feel for the audience. Now, RadioGuestList.com podcasters provides their audience size right there. But you can look on iTunes and look at the number of iTunes reviews because that gives you an indication of how big their audience size is because it's very hard to determine. But the higher the number of iTunes reviews, the harder it is to get on the podcast, believe me. But the fewer the listeners, the easier it is to get on there, but they're going to have a smaller audience. So I would pray and ask God for guidance on this. Because you might have like a Christian podcaster and you may have a bigger platform and that lends and helps them. And if God is leading you in that way to do that, then you do. You go for the smaller audiences. You want to listen to the show and ensure that you would want to be interviewed on it. I remember I was listening to this one healthy living show and they were cussing on the show. And it's like, that's really not necessary. And I really don't want to be interviewed on a podcast where they're cussing. Then you want to write an iTunes review for the show. This takes effort. You've listened to the show. Now you're writing an iTunes review for it. That's important because it's showing the podcaster that you are taking the time and effort to listen to their show and to write an iTunes review. We all know as authors how important it is for us to get a book review. So this is like the least that you could do to be on their show or potentially be on their show. Now you want to query podcasts in different genres to broaden your exposure. So I would get on a podcast about, how to sell more books. And then I would do a healthy living podcast. And then I would do a writer podcast. I tried to vary it. To write an iTunes review, sometimes this is hard to figure out where you go to write this iTunes review. Well, on the computer, you go to the podcast in iTunes and you go underneath where it says, you see where it's highlighted in blue there, ratings and reviews? Well, that's where you go to. You click on that, and once you click on that, here it goes, write a review. It's this little tiny box. If you want to do it on your phone, and to me, it's easier to do on your phone because you can dictate it. I always love to dictate into my phone instead of typing with my fingers. So you go underneath, and here's ratings and reviews, and then you go down here to write a review. You click on that, and then you can dictate or type right in what your review would be for the show. Now, we talked about how to find the shows, what you do to prepare before you query, and now here is querying the podcaster. You're going to address the host by name because you've done your research, you found their website, you know their name. The first sentence, I like to tell them what I liked about their show, and tell them also right there that you wrote an iTunes review for it. I might do, that's a one long sentence with a contraction, and I wrote an iTunes review for your show. Then you want to tell them who you are and how you can promote your show appearance. It's like, I'm on a bunch of different healthy living Facebook groups. I can tell them, okay, I can post it on 6 different Facebook groups, but my private group has 1,500 members. It's 7 steps to get off sugar, carbs, and gluten. And so I want to show them how I can use my platform to go ahead and promote my show's appearance. Then you want to get into 3 topics that would benefit the podcaster's audience. 3 quick bulleted potential topics. You want to include a link to your media page that has links to your previous interviews. And if you don't have that, and I'm going to show you mine in a moment, then you want to give them like a one sheet at the bottom and just attach it. Now, the trick to this is you want it short, okay? Less than 300 words. The following example is a query that is less than 200 words. Hello, Jeanette. I enjoyed the authenticity of It's Time for Coffee, and I wrote an iTunes review for it. I would love to be interviewed as a guest. I am an RN with an MBA and a master's in health science who published 7 healthy living books to help others improve their health. My award-winning book, 7 Steps to Get Off Sugar and Carbohydrates, is a #1 Amazon bestseller. It gets to the root of inappropriate eating. I also have a very active Facebook group with over 1,000 members. 3 topics that may benefit your audience. 1, review the top 4 reasons for inappropriate eating habits. 2, how emotional wounds may cause us to turn to food for comfort instead of God. 3, how to overcome an inappropriate relationship with food. My book, Christian Study Guide for 7 Steps to Get Off Sugar and Carbohydrates, is helping readers attain freedom from the food idol. I am on a mission to help Christians reclaim their health so they can serve God better. 9 years ago, I lost my health, and it was tough to get it back. To learn more about me, peruse my media page. Blessings, Susan Neal, RN, MBA, MHS. Now, one of the things that I suggested that you link them to is your media page. And as you get more interviews, this is really wonderful to add to your website. So here is mine, and on the left I have like the television shows I've been on here to the left, and on the right is magazine articles. And then lower on the page is here's my podcast interviews. And they go down and down. And as more are published, I just have my virtual assistant continue to add to the list. Now, whenever we do any type of marketing, we want to figure out if it was beneficial or not. That's why we always want to track it. We also want to track our queries. And because, I was just sending them out right and left. I would take like an hour at least once a week and go through, maybe a couple hours, and go through all this information to create query letters and send them out to the podcasters. I'm going to take a moment to take a sip of my hot tea here. So I made a spreadsheet. I included the podcaster's name, host name and email address, what topics I proposed, date I sent the query, their response, excuse me, date of the interview, and the date the show went live. Now take a moment to review this podcast query list of mine. Now this was from, I kept a list for, kept 3 different lists. One was for podcastguest.com, the other one was for radioguestlist.com, and the third one was for people I knew or networked or associations, because I wanted to see which one I got more responses from. And the one that was networking and associations, I got more yeses. And you can see with this one, the response is no, none, none, none. And then I got some yeses here. So Scar with Dustin Rivenbach, he's a great one. That's a great one to go ahead and query. He's a Christian. Then I got Detox for Vibrant Health. Well, that's right up my alley. And the Fit Farm food mom. So we had some things in common. So it's just random. You know, you may do 30 queries and you only get 5 yeses, but you just have to keep querying and don't let the no's or no responses where look at all these none, none, I didn't hear any kind of response versus this one just said, you know, right out no. So you just got to keep querying. When you get a response from the host, they usually send you a calendar. You schedule the interview on the calendar that they send you. You record that date on your calendar. And you know, on that calendar, what I also do is I write down the email, the date of the email. Okay, so like for this one today, I wrote down the date of the email and who had sent me the email so I could find that link really easily. You want to flag the email with the recording link. Usually it's via Zoom or Skype. If you don't have a Skype account, then you want to create one. You flag the email that includes the topics you discussed. Okay, so with these different topics, you know, I'm pitching to a lot of different places and I've got to remember which topics I sent to them. That's why I put that on that query sheet I just showed you. So I would remember what the topics were. And then I flag the email that includes the topics that I pitched to them so I know what I'm discussing on their podcast. In your thank you email, you want to send them a list to your press kit. This is different than your media page, and I'll show you mine in just a moment. And this includes links to all the information that the podcaster may need, such as your headshots, a couple of them, your bio, interview questions, book covers, social media links. Instead of having to send this out over and over again, if you create one page on your website, it's all right there for them. All you need to do is include the link. So here's my press kit, my bio, story ideas, that's basically interview questions. Here are the book covers. I gave a couple of my headshots and more. Now, let's prepare for the interview. We've talked about, okay, how to find podcasts. We've talked about your prep beforehand. We talked about your query letter, and then scheduling it. Now let's talk about the interview. So purchase a microphone and a pop filter. So I have used something like this. That's what you want to use. And I put my dogs in a kennel across the house with all the doors shut in between, so you have, no interruptions. My cell phone is off, okay? I silence notifications on the computer. I close other apps on the computer too, because if you have a bunch of, things up on your computer, it can actually decrease from the video recording, the bandwidth. So you want to eliminate those things. You want to sit in a comfortable chair. Make sure your temperature is good. Your lighting is good. And I learned this the hard way. Memorize the host's name, maybe even on your calendar when you wrote down the date and everything, the host's name, because if you're doing 29 in 8 months and you're going on, it's like, oh my gosh. So yes, remember their name and address them by name during the podcast. Tell listeners about your free gift. Okay, so this is really important, that you want to get those email subscribers with your free gift. So you want to be able, and I just wait until there's an obvious time to bring it up during the discussion. It might even be right at the end. And you want to be prepared for a final message to tell the audience, something, because they might come up at the end. A lot of them do, and say, okay, Susan, so if you were to summarize, what are 3 tips that you would tell somebody who is trying to make this new lifestyle change? Okay, number 1, drink water instead of any other beverages. It's fine to drink your 1 to 2 caffeinated beverages in the morning, but only drink water. 2, take a probiotic. So you get the idea. You want to have those 2 or 3 captions at the end. Now here's your free gift for listeners. And you want to purchase an easy to remember domain name for your free gift. And I learned this from Sandra Dalton Smith, another awesome member, and hers is restquiz.com, and it's the 5 types of rest, and figure out what type of rest you need. And she's done really well with that. So I was like, I really like that. So this year I created candyquiz.com and glutenintolerancequiz.com. So Candy Quiz. So a lot of the quizzes for gluten and candida were taken, so I was able to figure these out. Candy, C-A-N-D-I, like candida. So candida is a yeast, and there is, when you take an antibiotic, it kills the really good beneficial microbes in your gastrointestinal system. And yeast, this bad guy, has a chance to grow. And candida it loves sugar, carbs, and alcoholic beverages. So you want to figure out whether you do have a candida overgrowth. And if you do, you want to take steps to kill that guy so you can get your normal appetite back. So that's what the Candy Quiz is all about. And I had a candida overgrowth. 10 years ago, I lost my health. I had 10 medical diagnoses and 2 surgeries. And that's how I got on this mission to help others improve their health and their optimal weight. So I've gotten, I think 244 emails in the past 6 months from people listening to the different podcasts and downloading that. Plus, it's a free gift on the front page of my website, SusanUNeal.com. And then gluten intolerance quiz. I haven't gotten as many. I've gotten 74 of those, but I don't do as many podcast interviews in reference to gluten. But when I do, when we talk about it, I say, well, if you want to figure out if you have a gluten-related disorder, go to glutenintolerancequiz.com. So through the free, and you know what, that is so much better than saying, SusanUNeal.com/Candida quiz. It's like, who's going to remember that after they get off the podcast when they're driving? But they'll remember rustquiz.com or candyquiz.com or gluten intolerance quiz. Those are much easier to remember. That's why you buy the domain name.
Susan, a couple people, we've been curious, how do you develop your quiz? Do you have certain software, or how did you develop the quiz?
Yes, there is several different software programs that can formulate and tabulate your quiz. And Sandra Dalton Smith did hers like that. Since I did not want to be practicing medicine, I just chose a PDF handout. And they check the different boxes. And at the end, I basically say, okay, the more boxes you've checked here, the more likely you are to have a candida overgrowth or to have gluten intolerance. And I send them to other resources. So yours, it can just simply be a PDF handout. So through a free gift, you obtain listener emails. That's why you have the free gift. We all know that. And you want your free gift to be right, on the front page of your website. You want to send a visually appealing monthly newsletter to your email subscribers. So, and this, boy, it sure does take some tactic and effort to do this well, to get a good open rate, to keep your subscribers. And so I try to include lots of freebies. And at the end of one of my emails, I'll say, in your next email, you're going to get a morning healthy habit checklist. And then the next one, I give them the free gift of this really nice checklist. And so you want to, I've also put videos in there. So I've had a video that I've included in there because you want to have your email subscribers get to know you. So I've done a video about my whole story about losing my health. Another one, I did my here's my books, and I did a trailer, for my healthy living series of books. And I did my trailer and I included that on the email. So you want your emails to be visually appealing and contain really great stuff for your emailers that they want to keep hearing from you. My newsletters include my message, a link to one of my blogs, so I get them onto my website, a link to a previous podcast interview. And so after I've done a podcast interview, I go to the notes app of my phone and I dictate into there what we covered in the interview. So then when I'm creating my email subscription, my email automation, I know which one covers the topic that I'm including in that email. So I include a podcast interview that covers the topic that I just sent them in that email. And I also include a link to one of my products. You want to give value and help the reader get to know you better. Now, after your podcast interview, you want to email the host and thank them for the opportunity to be on their podcast. After the show has aired, so it's gone live, post it on all of your social media platforms. And you know what? I don't do it all at once because when I see, in notifications from Facebook and the same person is going from this group to this group, So one day I'll do this group, and then that evening I might do a different group. And the next morning I do a different group. So I vary it over the course of the week, so it's not all at the same time. And that takes more time, but I find it to be more effective. Add the show to the online media page on your website, and add the show to one of your email subscriber newsletters. And I had a question for y'all. Where else could you, what other ideas would you have for your shows? Guest interview podcast goals. Okay, so you need to make a decision about what your goals should be. For example, when I first published my book, 7 Steps to Get Off Sugar and Carbohydrates, my goal was to be on 1 podcast a month, 1 magazine article a month, and 1 guest blog post a month. This year, for the first 8 months, I was only interested on being in podcasts. I wanted to schedule almost 1 a week. So, what are your goals? Create your goals. And in my course, How to Sell 1,000 Books in 3 Months, I go over this with you so that you can come out of that course and have your 6-month marketing plan. There are over 40 links to different podcasters, guest blogs, magazine articles. You have the email, everything in there. So then at the end of everything that you learn from the 8 different lessons, then you can go ahead and create your marketing plan. So I like to schedule 1 podcast per week, if possible. And that's how I won the Christian Author Network Award for Outstanding Broadcast Media. Now, after August and September, I was like, woo! So what I did then in September is I did in my, I have a Facebook group, 7 Steps to Get Off Sugar, Carbs, and Gluten. It's 1,500 members. So what I did is Lose Your Pandemic Pounds campaign. And I did weekly Facebook Live sessions for my members in a free handout. I had book sales, woo! And so, I was providing value for my members in that group. So that was my September goal. And then this fall, what I've done is I've been on 2 different guest blog posts per month. So I'm just, being an author, it's like, you have to juggle all these balls. So I'm just, juggling. And, but I do track for each thing I do track how many website hits I get for 3 days and what are my book sales for 3 days to see which ones provide the most value and which ones would I want to repeat in the future. For the guest interviews, I like to schedule mine on Friday afternoon, and I like to schedule it in the afternoon because you get a little bit tired after doing that. So then that's what I choose to do. And as I just talked about, as an author, I go through periods where I'm marketing and periods where I'm not. And so you just mix it up. Podcasts provide an inexpensive means of informing listeners about your books, about your products. And you need to have more products than just books. Yes, we need to diversify our income. And I'll show you how I've done mine in just a moment. I pray that your podcast interviews will be spiritually fruitful for you and the listeners. Now, a little bit about me. I'm the author of 7 healthy living books. And when I write a book, I go into my cave for 5 months. I don't do any marketing. I just, it's a lot to write that book. My #1 Amazon bestseller, 7 Steps to Get Off Sugar and Carbohydrates. And I'll tell you how it got to #1. So Yeah, you can get your book to #1 for, an hour a day, a couple of days with your book launch, but it's been #1 since March of 2020 because at the end of February, I expanded my keywords and categories. And I am going to teach how to do that at the Christian Indie Publishing Association Take Action Workshop in January. My most recent publication is Solving the Gluten Puzzle. This year, I created a course, 7 Steps to Reclaim Your Health and Optimal Weight. I have DVDs, I have decks, I have books. I've got a couple of courses, a coach. You want to diversify your income. This is a business as well as a ministry. We need to be able to financially support our business. So I created a course. I'm an AWSA certified writer coach, and my website is susanunneal.com/author coaching for author coaching. I'm also a health and wellness coach. I am a certified Christian health and wellness coach with the American Association of Christian Counselors. Again, diversifying. And I love my clients, whether they are authors or individuals who want to improve their health. Oh, it gives me such joy and satisfaction to work with them. Director, I am, as of next month, January 2021, I will be the new director and owner of Christian Indie Publishing Association. And this is for independent authors and small publishers. And it provides discounts for like Ingram Spark Publishing, for ISBN numbers, for all these, for your book templates, for your book covers, all these different things. You get discounts, but also you find out who are the reputable resources that you can go to. We have Take Action workshops, a newsletter with the latest things that are going on in the publishing industry, monthly mastermind groups, and other resources and tools for the members. So thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your writer's chat today. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would be happy to I'd be happy to answer your questions.
This is good. Fascinating. Yeah, go ahead, Bethany.
I think I was just gonna say, this was so awesome, Susan. I loved everything, and I love that you were able to show how you built. So I know people get overwhelmed and like, oh, she has all these things, but you were so great at showing like, you start here and you do this, and then you build, and you add the course, and you add all these things, and I loved all the marketing stuff too. It was wonderful.
And all the ideas, and the idea of being diversified, that you can work on that. We can't, like you said, you don't have it all at once. And I love your honesty and sharing some rejections on your list. I love the idea that sometimes we have a writer's hat on, and sometimes we wear a marketing hat on that. When you do your marketing, let's say you're writing a new book right now. At what point do you flip to your marketing? I mean, I've learned this from Bethany, is that you start thinking about marketing as you write the book too. So how do you balance that?
Well, last year I wrote Solving the Gluten Puzzle. So from, after I got home from the Blue Ridge Mountain Christian Writers Conference from June through November, and then at the end of November, I published my book, and the day after I published my book, I put my marketing hat on, and it's like, okay, where are your podcasters? And I just started setting up my podcast interviews for January, so.
Yeah. And Isabel's one of our regulars from France, and she wanted to know if the Christian Indie Publisher Association was international.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
All right, that was great.
Yes.
Great. So, do we want to invite people on? Come on back on, everybody. If we've taken you off and you want to come back on, and if we've taken you off, sometimes you can't get back on without us releasing you from as we call it, Writer's Chat jail and all that. So if you're stuck and can't get back on, just put it in the chat. One of us will get you back on that way and stuff. Does anybody that's here with us today have an additional, did we get all the questions that were asked during the interview? I don't know if we've missed anything. I know a couple people were helping each other on, there was questions about Android, where to find things on Android, but I think you helped them, didn't you, Bethany, on the Android phone?
Yeah, I threw a link in there for some options.
Yeah, that was the only question I've said. What other questions do you have? Give you time for everybody a minute to get back in. Do you have questions?
Does anybody have any other products other than books?
I've done some content sheets, like you said, the PDF type thing, but quizzes always attract people. I think, I jumped in and asked that question. I think Rhonda wanted to know that question too, about how you developed your quiz. And I really like your idea of making it kind of, they self-score themselves.
Right, yeah, with medicine, I didn't want to put it on there. So, because I'm not a physician.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but otherwise, if it wasn't dealing with medical, you can subscribe to different things that do the quizzes. So, and I think you can find some that are initially free. So,
yeah.
So anybody else? Sorry, Jean.
No, I was just gonna say, if you did one of those quiz things, that it also gives you some feedback about what answers you would see access to at least the data from that quiz. Mm-hmm. Well, right now you don't see the answers per se. You don't know how many.
Right.
Correct? Yeah.
Right.
That. But if you don't, like you said, there's a whole other legal and a whole other complication to that too.
Right.
Yeah. Bethany talks about checklist. What about checklist, Bethany?
Yeah.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
Okay, so just kind of a general thing, people like to opt into checklists or anything that looks like they're going to save them time or those kinds of things. So if there's a way to make a checklist out of something that you're writing about, that can be a quick starter opt-in. Was just something an idea. People like those. I like them. Yeah. I download them and I don't use them, but I'm not alone in this. So, but this was great. I have to pop up. This was amazing.
Yeah, I think sometimes when they have titles with numbers in them, 50 Bible verses in the
7
Bible.
Yeah.
7 steps. Yeah, I think that's always a good hook. Good hook on that.
Well, we have some other answers too. I'm sorry. We have some other answers: coloring books, photography, art, as far as other content.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Who has a free gift on their website? Raise your hand.
I should.
So that would be a great thing to do, is to create a free gift for your website. So then, if you want to include that in the bio at the bottom of the article that you write, that then you get your email. Yes. So and the thing is that we end up, owning our emails. We don't own Facebook. And, that is pay to play, If I include a link, oh yeah, 3 people see it, So that's really, really hard. So, but it's so important as authors to do it early, to get your emails from your people. And if your people love who you are, they're going to buy product after product from you. So getting their emails is really important.
It is. Have you had any experience on podcasts that ended up humorous, or I hate to say disastrous, but something like, wow, where you learned?
No, I didn't, but I have had podcasts where they chose not to, probably about 1 a year. They just chose not to put it on. I don't know if my stuff was more, I know with one, it was more competitive with what she was doing as a health coach and such. But sometimes that happens, but It's okay. And the more podcasts you do, the better you'll get. So, and you just have to pretend. I just pretend like with this, I was just talking to Bethany, you know? Yeah, you know? Yes.
Well, I love your idea about setting a goal and one a week. That is wild. What on that? Leslie's asking, what are some good ideas for new authors for freebies?
For a PDF gift. So you want to give the checklist, or what does your book have to deal with? So if it's a fiction book, it could be, I don't know, something about the history of the area or the backstory with the, the people in your book, your heroine, your hero. So you want to come up with something of value to give your listener, to give your reader.
Johnny, you're a resident fiction writer. You have something to add to that?
A lot of people suggest a short story that can, either have something to do with the book that you're writing. But that's a great one. It gets people an idea of your writing style, and maybe it could be like a prequel to what you're writing. So it's just a short story. It doesn't have to be long. Makes a nice little gift. As you were all saying that, I'm writing a story now about a code breaker during World War II, and thinking, oh my gosh, I should come up with some kind of code that people can then, solve on their own to give some kind of message to give as a free gift. So I might be working on that later. Yeah. So, but basically what I've heard is, I like Susan's suggestions too, about people are always interested in the inspiration behind a story, the story spark. And if you're writing historical, people are often interested in that area or in that era. Or I know Melissa and Rhonda both are writing these fabulous, huge historical novels and series. And I'm not going to say who's because I'll get it wrong, but I think one is set in Scotland and one is set in Ireland. Am I right? And so, people are very interested in those cultures and in that history.
That reminds me of a question, because that's where I'm at right now. I was trying to work on some freebies to put up on my site. And I was wondering about good PDF creators, because I don't have one and I need to get one.
Yeah, I send that off to my, I have two different virtual assistants. One of them does my graphic art, and one of them does my other stuff. Wow. Landing pages, email thing, because we can't do it all. And I mean, I at the beginning, to learn how to do, MailChimp or benchmark email, or those things would take me a half a day. Whereas, I could pay someone a lot less than all my time to do that. So at some point you need to start looking for a virtual assistant to help you.
I will say quickly that anything you create in Word can be saved in PDF format. So just because you have Word, don't get all panicked. It's just under the command is File and Save As. And graphics are harder in Word. That's why other programs exist. I design PDFs in a program called InDesign, but it's very expensive and there's a big learning curve on how to do it. But you can create beautiful PDFs with Canva. I know a lot of people like that, but you can do graphics in Word too. You just have to learn a little better how to do it. But anything you create in Word can be saved into a PDF.
That's my problem. I know how to save it from Word, but creating it in there is a whole nother ballgame.
And for those that have Macs, you can use Pages to create, and then you save it, you export it as a PDF. That's what I do with my editorial flyers.
Also, if you have Word, you can, I'm pretty sure I've got this right because I've just started using it, but you can export, it will do it as a PDF, and it will keep your links if you have specific links in there.
Yep.
Yes, and it's really great to include their links to your different stuff, like, coaching page, or, this product, or your course, or whatever. Mm-hmm.
It sounds like this could be a topic for Writers Chat coming up in future topics, is creating freebies, ideas, and creating them and stuff. We might turn to a couple of you guys to help us on background on that. You talked about VAs, and I would have to go back and somebody asked in the chat, but it says, how do you find a good VA? How did you find yours, Susan? And
okay, well, let's see. My VA has a school, and Jamie Hull also uses her. So let me look up her email address right here. I'll give it to you. And she always refers to different people. It's Alyssa, ALYSSA.
Susan.
Okay, it's Alyssa, ALYSSA at Alyssa, which is ALYSSA, Avant, AVANT, and company.com. So you can email her and tell her what your needs are, and she will refer you to a virtual assistant, because she has a school and she trains them. So based upon your needs, she will be able to tell you who to go to. Alyssa at AlyssaAvant and company.com.
is Ann spelled out? Or
yes, it's AND.
And company is spelled out.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I will also say that I can produce PDFs. My design services are $35 an hour at Dragomir Group. And usually a simple PDF with a checklist and so forth is, 15 minutes probably tops, if it's not very complicated. So I just charge a flat rate per hour. And every time you change it, it's going to cost you more money. So if you can send me your completed thing in advance, working with a virtual assistant, their time is money too. So get a good concept, write it well, be very specific in what you want it to look like. Send an example of something you've seen online, a layout that you love. I can copy just about anything. But when you work with a virtual assistant, you have to, it isn't just like send it off to them and it comes back beautiful. There's a lot of you have to do in planning to work with someone to be sure you get something that looks like your brand.
Thank you, Melissa. Melissa put your link in the
chat.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll put my email too. That's the best way to reach me.
That is great. Thank you, guys. Well, this has been wonderful today, Susan.
Can I add one little thing?
Yes, go ahead. Hop on, Kathy.
Okay, I just wanted to share that I've recently seen this with a friend of mine and corrected hers, but I've seen it with all kinds. They're not putting their email or their link even in gray at the bottom, and stating when it was produced in like a date over in the corner or something. So that mine usually say updated on this day. So they don't think they're getting one that's been out there forever. They know it's recent, and they know who did it. Because if they look at it now and then, a year down the road, it's like, oh, I have that. Oh, but who gave that to me? So add those in at the bottom, even in gray.
Very good. And it's amazing how we produce it. We're thinking we've got it, but it's amazing we forget our own names on some of this stuff. But yes, that and the date. I love the idea of the date, Kathy. That is a great point. Listen, usually we invite, I think most of we'll stay on for a few minutes after the recording finishes, and we'll have our after party and celebrate anything news going on. But just real quick about next week, Jan is going to be one of our co-hosts next week, and it's Gina, what's Burgess? Is that her last name?
Burgess.
Jan?
Gina Burgess.
And we're going to talk about publishing on Kate's DP. So we're excited about that. And that's something, and there'll be kind of a good follow-up to the self-publishing guru that we had today with Susan. So on that. So please participate next week. We got 3 weeks before we take a little Christmas break. And we'll see everybody next week on Writer's Chat. Thank you again, Susan. This has been great. Get that handout, guys. Get that handout. It was wonderful. And you've added so much today. Kind of inspired me to start thinking marketing again. So appreciate it so much on that way.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. We'll see you in the after party. See you next week.